Hey everybody, this is Mark Bates, and I am here to talk to you about Plush, the brand new templating engine for Go that's come out of the Buffalo project recently. I'm very excited about this. This is a really just an amazing rendering templating system. It's very, very powerful. It does so much. It basically embeds a whole programming language for you to use. It really lets you build templates that you couldn't really build in a lot of other templating languages in Go so far. I'm very excited about this. It really has helped me build really complex templates that I was really struggling with before. So let's dive right in. Let's take a quick look at it and see what it is here. I've got two files open. I have a main.go file on the left, and on the right I have a very simple HTML file that we're going to plushify, if you will. So just understanding my main.go file here, I have a very simple little function called HTML, which just reads in that HTML file and returns it as a string. And then really it's in my main function here that I'm doing all of the work here. And I'm going to use the plush render method. There are a couple methods, functions rather, on Plush that we can, the Plush package we can use to create a new template. One is we can do kind of parse or new template, and the other one, which will both return templates, or the other one we can do is just render, which is probably what you'll do most of the time. It deals with the parsing and stuff like that, and just returns back a fully rendered string. So that's what we're going to do here. Render takes two things. It takes a string, which is the thing you want to kind of render, and a context, a bunch of data that you want to pass to that string to do something, kind of put them all together. And that's what we're doing here. So the result of render is going to be a rendered string and an error. So if we run this, you can see here we get just our HTML back because there's nothing very exciting inside of our template. So let's go and do that. Let's add something to our template here. This, by the way, this context is a valid Go context. If you don't believe me, you can see right here, it does all the things that we need a Go context to do. So it's not a special well, it is a special context, obviously, but it fulfills the context interface here. So on it, I'm going to set a name, and I'm just going to call it Mark. Here we go. And now in my template here, I'm going to say hello, name. And now when I run this, you can see there we go. I got hello Mark printed out. So this syntax here is open bracket, the greater than, less than, then percent, and then the equal tells it to print out something. If I take the equal away, it'll evaluate that expression, but it won't actually do anything with it. So if I run it again here, see, it just says hello. It doesn't actually print it out. I can also put a comment in here, and it doesn't even evaluate that expression. So it's as if what's inside of there never happens. So what's nice about this is we can do not only printing stuff out, we can control what gets printed out, but we can also do some really, really fun things, knowing that what we do inside of those non-equal tags that never gets evaluated. So for example, I could say let greet equals hi, and down here I can change hello to be my greet, and if I run this now, there you go, hi Mark. So I can actually declare variables inside of my templates, and I can create hashes, I can create arrays, I can even create functions inside my templates, but we're not going to talk about that right now. So lots of really cool stuff already happening right there inside of Plush. We can go even further with this here. We can take these two things and we can concat them together, and maybe put a little space in here like such. And if we run this again, there you go, hi Mark. So we've got string concatenation going on there. We've got a lot going on just inside this little template here. But so far, we haven't really pushed the envelope, with the exception of maybe declaring new variables inside of our templates here. So let's do something a little more interesting. Let's put an if statement in here. So we're going to say if the name equals Mark. Then we'll print it out. So here we go. Now you notice our if syntax requires parentheses, also requires curly braces here. We can say, hello, and then the name. We'll just get rid of these lines here. And if we run that, we got nothing because Mark doesn't equal Mark. Mark is a capital M versus a lowercase m. So let's do this now here and run it. And now we got hello Mark. What's also interesting to note is, again, we have to put the equal sign here because we're controlling what happens out of this if statement. So if we get rid of that equal sign, we're not going to get anything in there. And of course, we can, not just use double equals. Here we can also do not equals. And I just realized I probably should have turned off my special fonts that I like to use here. So I'm just going to do that very, very quickly. Let's do that font. There we go. It's a little bit better, so you can actually see the text I'm doing here. So I can do bang equals, and of course, this won't print out anything. But if I change it to, say, a lowercase m, anything that's not equal to that, then it'll work. And we can do complex equality statements in here. We can do grouped statements. So, for example, I can do this. I can put an additional set of parentheses in here, and I can say and true. There we go, and that prints out. Or I could say and false. We can get really, really complex with these statements here. And of course, we can put an else statement in here if should we want to, that says, we don't know who you are. And of course, if I run that now, we see we don't know who you are. So again, really complex if statements inside of our templates there. We can just keep nesting this. And we can do this with things like numbers, where we can say where 1 is less than or equal to 2, like that. There we go. And we can reverse it here. Oops, that was my bad. Like that. And actually, that's a bad token. I don't know why I did that. Apparently, I don't know how math works. There we go. There we go, where 1 is greater than or equal to 2. Obviously, it's not, so it's going to be false. We can do ors in here. I think you're getting the idea. We can do pretty much anything we want inside of if statements. Very powerful inside of Plush. Okay, so we've covered if statements here. What about like a for loop? Well, let's say we'll set names. Here, we'll make this a string array of John, Paul, George, and Ringo. And if you do not know who these people are, please stop watching right now. And I don't even know what to say to do with yourself. Let's, yeah, we're going to say for n in names. There we go. And we need a little closing statement here. There we go. So for n in names, we're using one argument here. And when we use one argument, it's going to be the value of the string in this case. If I were to do 2, the first argument is going to be the index. And then the second argument will be the value. We don't really care about the index here, so I'm just going to get rid of it. And let's just print off the names here. If we run that, fantastic. We saw John, Paul, George, and Ringo. We can also use some helpers here. So for example, the capitalize helper is going to capitalize all of our names for us. Plush has a whole bunch of built-in helpers. If we scroll down here to our list of built-in helpers, JSON converts an interface to a JSON object, JS escape, HTML escape, do escaping in the appropriate places, upcase, downcase. Content for, content of lets us store a block and then of code of HTML and then use it later. Markdown lets us convert a string to a markdown string to HTML length returns the length of an interface. Debug and inspect, do different things with debugging and inspecting. Ranging, event between, until are useful in for loops to do different things between ranging between numbers, going between numbers, until a number is reached. And then we also pull in, as we just saw, a whole bunch of stuff from the inflect package that lets us do stuff with inflection in terms of, say, camelizing or capitalizing different things inside of our code. So let's say we have, we'll use this name string again here, and we can pass it into, we'll get rid of all that. We'll use the JSON, built-in JSON function here, and we'll pass it names. And when we render that, you can see we get a JSON array back. So when we're calling functions, you notice we do have to use parentheses. That is our required thing. So that's very nice. And one of the reasons why I think that's very nice is in other templating systems, they try to be very simple, but don't allow us to do kind of complex calling of functions, which we can do here. Which kind of brings me to my next point of creating our own functions, our own templating helper functions. We can add those either right into the context or on the Plush package itself. There is a helper list of helpers here, and we can add helpers kind of to the overall Plush package, and those will be available to all templates that get rendered. But in this case, I'm just going to set one onto the context here. So let's do a little one here that, I don't know, what would be a fun little block to do. Let's basically rebuild a capitalized one, but using our own. So we'll call it cap. And it'll be a function that takes a string, and it's going to return a string. Here we go. And so to do that, I'm going to use the inflect package and the capitalize function on that, like such. So now if I go back here, if I do cap mark, there you go. You can see I've called a function. And we can get really, really creative with our functions here. We can do all sorts of fun stuff with it. We're not just limited to strings coming back and forth here. But let's add another function here. And this function here will return some JS to us. Pretty straightforward here. There we go. And we will return alert. You've been pwned. And there we go. Close that alert tag up like that. And so now, if we just call our little JS function here, cleared it right away. You notice that it's been escaped, and the reason is Plush won't render, will escape strings that aren't of type HTML. So, to kind of clarify that a little bit here, if I were to change my return type to template.html here and wrap that in a template.html here, which comes from the standard Go templating package. There you go. Now you can see we've been owned. So you want to be obviously careful about what you return in these functions. You don't really want to return user content. You want to always make sure you're just returning safe content inside of them. Okay, let's get a little more interesting here. Let's build a template. Let's build a function here. We'll call it div. And this div function is going to take some options that we could put on the div. So for example, maybe class, big, maybe a data attribute here. Data ID is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what we're going to do, what we wanted to do is to build a div for us. But inside that div, we want to have stuff. It's no point having a div without any content in it. So we can do that by giving it a block of code. And you can see here, I'm using the curly braces just like I did on a for loop or an if statement here. And that's going to give that div access to that block of code. But first I want to notice here, I'm doing a hash or a map inside of my code here. And I'm actually going to turn that into a number of some sort here. So I'm giving it two different elements, a class with the value big and a data ID with a value of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is how we do hashes. They're very similar to JSON hashes. And you notice that the quotes are optional. And on the other side, on the go side here, we can create our div function here. And that is going to take our options, which is going to be a map of string interfaces. And that is what all maps or hashes in Plush become in the Go world. They become a map of string to interface, of type interface here. And then the second argument we're going to take is a Plush helper context here. And oops, yep, there we go. And that's going to return template.html. Here, and what have I done wrong inside of my function? That all looks good. Oh, silly me. A comma. There we go. And of course, it doesn't return anything, so that's valid. So first thing we probably want to do is build that div. I'm going to use a package I have called tags. We're going to call div, and we're going to give it those options here. And there we go. And ultimately, we're going to return div HTML. There we go. And so if we run this, let's see what we get back. So we got our div, great, but there's no body to it. So let's add a body to it here. Let's say hello from our div, like this. And you know what, we'll make it bold, just to prove that we got some HTML going on there. And let's see what happens when we run it this time. Well, we're still not getting any body in there. So why aren't we getting a body? Well, we're not getting a body because we haven't called the body. And that's what the HTML, the help.block or help block with lets us do. The block with lets us give it a new context to use here. In this case, we're just going to use the current context that we want, and that's going to return back a string and an error. So we should probably return back the error here as well. Oops, like such. There we go. And of course, we got to do our error checking here. We'll do template.html with an empty string on it. There we go. And S is declared and not used, which makes sense. We never did anything with it. Let's append our body to it. Here we go. So now when we run this, there we go. We've got content inside of our div. So we've built a pretty complex little helper very, very quickly, right? We've taken a hash of different values. We've given it a block that we potentially want to run. Now, maybe we don't want to run it. Maybe there's some logic inside of here that we don't want to do. So let's implement that here. Let's say that if we'll do that if check again, where if the value of name is set does not equal nil, and the help value name is of type string equals mark, right? Then we're gonna render all of this here. So this should work because it is set here. But if we go and turn off that value, we shouldn't get a block, and we don't. So there you go. So we can build really nice helpers that let us do a bunch of really, really interesting things. We don't have to return strings. We can return integers, and we can return all sorts of fun stuff. We can return maps and iterate over those maps if we want to, or arrays, slices, whatever. There's a lot more, and I highly encourage you to dig into the docs for Plush and really get a feel for what it's doing. It's very, very powerful, like I said, and it's pretty easy to use, and you can do a lot with it very, very quickly. So that's it. This is it for our, I said it's just going to be a very high-level overview of using Plush to build really strong templates and really powerful templates, and I think I've hopefully shown you that. And that's it for now, and this is going to be included in Buffalo 080 as a default templating engine. But if you're already building Buffalo apps and you're on 074, you can actually use this right now by changing the renderer to the Plush renderer, which there are details on the blog on how to do that. So that's it for now. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you soon.